You know that moment when you send a text and the entire world just stops moving? You're sitting there with the blue light of your screen reflecting in your eyes, and it's been exactly 4 minutes since you hit send. 4 minutes on the clock, but inside your head, inside the churning machinery of your mind, it's been 4 hours, maybe 4 days, possibly an entire lifetime compressed into this single moment of waiting. The clock on the wall is ticking at its normal pace, one mechanical second after another. But your internal metronome has completely lost its rhythm. Every second feels like it's dragging a heavy weight behind it, stretching time into something thick and viscous. Why does 4 minutes of waiting for a reply feel physically measurably longer than sitting through a 4-hour flight? Here's what I need you to understand. This isn't just impatience, and you're not being dramatic. This is a fundamental evolutionary mismatch in the human operating system. It stems from an ancient survival mechanism that clashes with our modern digital world. When you send a message, you're not just transmitting data across fiber optic cables and cellular towers. You're launching a social signal into the void, and until that signal returns with an answer, until you get confirmation that you still matter to someone, your brain enters a state of high alert ambiguity. It's the waiting room of the mind, and it turns out to be the most expensive, most neurologically costly place for your consciousness to exist. So what's actually happening here? Why does the absence of a few pixels on a screen, a simple lack of notification, trigger what feels like a full-scale neurological crisis? The answer lies buried in how our ancestors managed to survive for hundreds of thousands of years. For most of human history, being ignored by your social group wasn't just rude or inconsiderate, it was a literal death sentence. If you were part of a tribe and the group stopped responding to your signals, stopped acknowledging your presence, it meant you were being ostracized from the collective. Ostracization meant you were alone in a hostile world. Being alone meant you were vulnerable, exposed, prey. Your brain hasn't quite caught up to the fact that a delayed WhatsApp reply isn't the same existential threat as being abandoned by your nomadic group on the savannah. So when that seen icon appears, but the typing bubbles don't show up, and the silence drags on for minutes that feel like hours, your threat detection system starts screaming at full volume. That's the amygdala, basically your primitive smoke detector. It perceives that digital silence as a social threat, and to your nervous system, social threats and physical threats activate the same alarm bells. The brain handles social pain in a similar way to physical pain, with overlapping neural pathways. Research has demonstrated that overlapping neural regions, such as those involved in the emotional distress of pain that light up when you stub your toe or touch a hot stove, are also activated when you feel socially rejected or excluded. A delayed reply is a micro-rejection, a tiny digital sting that sends a clear signal to your nervous system. You are not a priority right now. You are not valued in this moment. You might be losing your place in the tribe. But there's a second layer to this torture, and it's even more insidious: the dopamine loop. When you send a text, your brain sets up an expectation for a reward, a notification sound, a vibration in your pocket, the satisfying appearance of a response. These are hits of dopamine, little chemical rewards that tell your brain the social connection is intact. When that reward gets delayed, when the expected dopamine hit doesn't arrive on schedule, the brain doesn't just sit quietly and wait with patience. It goes into frantic search mode, desperately craving closure, obsessively trying to resolve the uncertainty. This is why you find yourself checking your phone every 30 seconds, even though you know it hasn't vibrated, even though you can see the screen is dark and empty. You're not being irrational. You're trying to close the loop, trying to resolve the terrible uncertainty that's flooding your nervous system with stress hormones. Have you noticed how your brain starts writing entire scripts for the other person during those silent minutes? Maybe they're busy with something important. No, wait, they were active on Instagram 2 minutes ago. I saw the green dot. Maybe they're angry with me. Did I say something wrong in my last message? Did they misinterpret that emoji I used? Within 10 minutes of silence, we can manufacture an entire dramatic narrative where we are simultaneously the villain, the victim, and the forgotten side character in someone else's story. We fill the empty silence with our own deepest insecurities, our worst fears about ourselves, every anxious thought we've ever had about not being enough. The scene feature is perhaps one of the most anxiety-inducing tools accidentally created by Silicon Valley. It provides just enough information to confirm that the other person received your signal and consciously chose to read it, but it gives you zero information about their emotional state or their intentions. It is the ultimate cliffhanger, leaving you suspended in a state of maximum uncertainty. But here's the strange irony that we all participate in, often without realizing it. We all do this to other people. We receive a message, we read it, we think, I'll reply to this in a bit when I have more time, and we move on with our day. We don't realize that on the other side of that screen, we have just stopped time for another human being. We have inadvertently activated their ancient threat detection systems, triggered their dopamine craving circuits, set off a cascade of anxious thoughts in their mind. There's a strange shared absurdity in this modern condition. Two people separated by miles or continents, both staring at glowing rectangles, both experiencing the same painful time dilation, the same neurological torture, but at different intervals, like ships passing in the night. Next time you're sitting there watching the clock crawl forward at its agonizing pace, I want you to remember something important. Your brain is just trying to protect you from what it perceives as a social threat. It's an ancient survival system, refined over millions of years of evolution, trying its best to navigate a world of instant communication that exploded in popularity just a couple of decades ago. The anxiety you feel isn't a sign of weakness or dysfunction. It's evidence that your social survival instincts are functioning exactly as they were designed to. The silence isn't a rejection. It's just silence. We're all out here, staring at screens, waiting for those three dots to appear, trying to prove to ourselves that we still belong to the tribe, that we still matter to someone, that we haven't been left behind.